I am Chad Anderson of Filmmaker U, filling in for Gordon Burkell. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more about us on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional, or in this case, two film professionals. And this week, we are joined by executive producers Steve Stark and Kim Todd, whose work includes the hit TV shows The Handmaid's Tale, Wednesday, and most recently, Fargo on Hulu. Welcome to the show, Steve and Kim. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to get started. I want to talk about adapting Fargo from the film, the Coen Brothers film, translating that to a series. So the first season started with kind of a translation of the film, or close to the same story, not exactly, a little deeper dive into it. But now we're going into different directions with each season of new stories, taking some liberties in that case. How did that come about, or how was that approached to try to stay true to the film but also deviate a little bit?
It's a great question, and it's a fun one because I started as an executive at MGM, and I transitioned into producer with this show. It's one of my favorites, and the movie Fargo was one of my favorite movies. So when Noah and Warren Littlefield first approached me when I was at MGM to talk about doing Fargo, it scared me. Like, I was like, oh my God, we can't do that. Like, that's a horrible idea, right? How in the world do we touch that? And we quickly concluded that let's not do Fargo. Let's not have someone imitating Marge Gunderson. It's like TV karaoke. If someone was imitating her in a TV series, like, no, we're not going to do that. And Noah quickly embraced that idea of doing it completely original, just with the tone and as we call it, tragedy. Comedy meets tragedy. And so then he wrote this beautiful script. And then then with John Landgraf and FX, we were like, well, we can't do this without the Coen Brothers. Like, how do we possibly do this without them? So we sent it to them, crossed our fingers, closed our eyes, and said, what if they hate it? What if they hate it? And they came back and they said, my God, how did you crawl into our head? Right. So that began this sort of adventure, and they embraced it, endorsed it, joined us as executive producers. And because we surprised them, and I think we surprised the audience. And so the biggest thing was when it ended, we're like, oh my God, I actually surprised people, which is what we wanted to do. But then this was Noah, because we're like, let's just keep doing it with Colin Hanks and Allison Tolman. Let's keep it the story. But no, he's like, we got to start over. So every year has become this challenge of doing it again, fresh and original, with all over. And so we feel we had to do it. We have to sort of reinvent it. And Noah's done a brilliant job of that every year.
And just for the record, people regularly had the same reaction that Steve described. That's a terrible idea. I remember Ted Danson coming to work with us in the second season and saying to me, admitting to me on set, he'd never watched the show. He refused to watch it because he was sure it was terrible, because he loved the movie. But of course, he had to watch it when we'd asked him to become part of it, then fell in love with it. So that journey of, oh my God, what a stupid, terrible idea, to, oh, wait a minute, this actually, even the Coen Brothers themselves, this actually can be a kind of deeper, different kind of dive into the world without imitation, with actual originality. We all went on that journey, and it's always been Noah's scripts that won the day, right? That made us realize what it could be.
And I think, to answer the other question, Chad, is I think the fun of this has been, even though we're doing a new series every year, a completely new series, I think you have to, like, the audiences, they don't not only require closure, right? You want to be on this journey and have a satisfying or some ending to the story. So doing that every year gave us doing the new adventures of these Molly and all these characters again, less interesting now. People demand a little bit more of a variety, and I think that we did.
And I think Noah has said very pointedly that the character of Molly Salverson would only have this one event happen in her life, that the believable character would not have more than one Malvo appear in her life. And so he wanted to keep that sense of reality, that Minnesota Nice, that this is how people live, and this is the event that's seminal in their lives. And the other thing I would mention is that although Fargo was our beginning point, Noah and all of us following Noah have also used other Coen Brothers movies as references. So when we talk about the palette, the tone, the style of any individual season, we've ranged a little further afield into the Coen Brothers' work than
Mhm.
simply Fargo, although we returned to Fargo the movie very much in this last season, rather, not the final season, but the last one we've just done.
I think what attracted me to color correction was the fact that we were like the next stage of cinematography. And the creative side was huge, trying to understand what was wrong with an image, how to balance it, trying to understand how to let the tools do what you want them to do. Where else can the technology go? What else can we do? I'm very interested in trying to mold the image and create the best look possible. And whatever tools are out there, you want to try and latch onto them. I'm Eric Whipp, and this is my course on color correction.
Sure, absolutely. I was surprised. I came into Fargo a little bit late, so by season 3, I said to myself, well, how are they turning this into 3 seasons? Because there's no way they could tell this same single film as 3 seasons without obnoxiously stretching it out. But the idea of doing a separate story in the same tone, in the same vein. What I want to ask about, or I wanted to ask you to comment about, was what's amazing to me is that the Coen brothers aren't writing this and that Noah's writing this, because it feels so much like the Coen brothers, like you said, the Coen brothers, you got into their heads. I feel like Noah just sat and watched every Coen brothers film 1,000 times and became programmed somehow to write in this same style that's there. Some of the broader strokes, the Coen brothers have this thing where they always have this, this menacing character, this unstoppable force who always comes with this intimidation. You have that with Billy Bob Thornton in the first season, and it's always, it's the same thing that was in No Country for Old Men, the same thing that was even in Raising Arizona, this, killer who's going to come and get you kind of in the night. How did Noah, do you have any idea how Noah did this?
It's funny, a good question, because when the challenge was thrown, let's not do the movie, let's recreate it. He came back and just delivered it. Like what he wrote the first time out was just like it. It was just what we did. I mean, almost we shot what he wrote. He has a chameleon-like quality that can adapt to these things, and he's an incredible fan of the Coen brothers. He's a fanboy of them. So I think, but he's also very good at creating his own thing. So I think he just has a natural gift for it, honestly, to do it.
And I think that Noah's found one of his sweet spots, because I'm sure he has many. He's such a talented guy, but his own love of and fascination with middle America, with the decency of people and how that decency is impacted when they come in contact with evil. I think Fargo offers him a world in which he can explore themes that are really important to him and create characters that he loves. I mean, you can feel in Noah's writing, he loved Malvo. It's easy to love Molly, but he also loved Malvo. The depth he gives all his characters is what makes the series so rich.
Yeah, but we are really defined almost every season by our villain. I mean, there's always something that sort of becomes the thing. But what I love, and I particularly love this about season 1, is how, yes, Billy Bob Thornton was the malice that entered this world, but Martin Freeman's character is the character that became the worst of all of them. Like the victim becomes the villain, and that kind of surprise and that kind of twist are what I think makes the show so special.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Considering Martin Freeman and Billy Bob Thornton and Ted Danson and Jennifer Jason Leigh and
long list
and Chris Rock in season 4, and how do you manage, and John Hamm, I'm going to keep going if you don't stop me. How do you manage to attract all of these fantastic, amazing stars into the show? It seems like it's like a wish list of just bring in random people and they they're amazing.
The scripts. I mean, obviously the scripts, all those people, those fabulous actors are looking for great material. It became easier after the first season when Noah had proven himself and actors went, oh my God, that's a writer I want to work with, and a director. But it's the stories and the scripts. That's it. It's so rich. I mean, no offense to the landscape of writing generally, but actors would kill for roles like this.
And Noah does write oftentimes with actors in mind. Like he'll craft roles for people that he wants to work with, and they all sign up quickly.
Yeah.
We almost got everybody we wanted. Everybody that we sort of targeted, we got.
In terms of relationship as an executive producer, how has effects been with the relationship with Fargo in terms of approaching this?
You know, from the beginning, you know, they are a curated group of people that know what they want and what they do. And they're very, you know, if you look at the landscape of buyers, FX is a place you want to be because they have a very specific and targeted thing they do, and they're very, very curation of quality. So they have been, and they incredibly supportive, much from the beginning. We have an amazing team with between John Landgraf and Gina Bailey in there who are actually sort of our guides of this. They're on top of it. They trust us and they trust Noah, and nothing but great respect for them. I mean, it's been an amazing experience.
I agree. I can't imagine a better team to work for, and I wouldn't say that about every team I work for.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. As executive producers, you've talked glowingly about Noah. As you know, are there times at which you need to step in for the direction of this show that you've come in and said, hey, you know, we need to do it this way, we need to do it that way? Has there been challenges in how you approach this, or are you pretty hands off about how you go into it?
There's
Well,
challenges. Yeah, there's challenges all the time on every level. I mean, shooting in Calgary alone during the winter is its whole set of challenges, right? But Kim, you probably should speak to this as well, because we deal with a lot of financial challenges, right, and schedule challenges and actors challenges, and Kim, you do that very well.
Well, I mean, the great thing about Noah is he's brilliant. He's also a collaborator. I mean, he's a collaborator just because he's a smart guy and he knows we're the ones making his show and we want to meet the bar he has set and we need his help to do it. So my feeling about the crew in Calgary, who I met in the first season because I'm not from Calgary, I'm from Toronto, was that we all had to come together and realize, hold hands, and we'll right up to the edge of the cliff, but not fall off. We're going to spend every dollar we can on the screen. We're going to understand the high quality and demands of the show, and we're going to go back to Noah when we feel we can't achieve it. So for a silly example, let's just say we find the exact set decorating stuff that we need for the living room. But then if we buy it, we can't afford the dining room. Go back to Noah and say, can we put both scenes in the living room? Now, that's a simple example, but multiply that by all the different choices you make in production.
Sure.
And Noah gets it. We can deliver you the exact thing here, but it's going to compromise this. So can we do this, which no one will notice? I think the other thing about Noah is that the clarity in his scripts gives every person on the show, every artist on the crew, a clear vision of where they need to go. So he, as a director as well as a writer, he's a leader that allows us not to go down any dead ends. We got to go there, and that's what we need, and that's what we want. And he also knows what the job is. He used to call me up. He called me one evening. I'm at home, and he said, I've just written a scene where we're going to need a bowling alley in the middle of the woods. Just thought I'd let you know. And so, okay, we're going to mobilize the crew, and we're going to figure out, this is in season 3, the bowling alley in the middle of the woods. But you know, he works with us. So yeah, we do have to give him feedback sometimes that is, okay, we've tried everything and we can't deliver dense fog in the middle of a forest for an entire episode so that nobody can see each other. We've tried visual effects, we've tried special effects, and Noah said, okay, I'll switch it to night, because the thing he needed was that the prey and the predator couldn't see each other.
Yeah.
So there's an example of a creative adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that creativity is the ability you're going to have to adapt. You know, there is going to be
Right.
circumstances where you say, hey, this is the message I'm trying to get across, or this is the meaning I'm trying to provide. While at the same time, you say, hey, it can be provided this way or it can be provided this way. This way is doable. This way is not. And,
Right.
you know, those tough decisions.
Yeah, and it's always the same. But, you know, honestly, 100% 95% of the time, it's ambition versus reality, right?
Mhm.
The ambition of the show is huge. We shoot a lot, all over, lots of days, very expensive, and but we have a bucket, right? And it's always 5 gallons in a 1 gallon bucket, right? And how do you do that? What do you do? So that's most of what we do, making sure we can still deliver the ambition and the scope, but do it in a way that's reasonable, and it's commerce too at the end of the day, right? It's a business.
Yeah.
Well,
In terms
have enough money left to shoot the last episode. That's the goal.
Yeah.
In terms of business, what I'm often surprised about is the number of extras that you must have in a show like this. It's a huge number of extras. There's whole crowds of I feel like there's a whole town that you've just adopted to grab in extras. It's got to be a significant part of the pie.
Well, and we never see the same one twice. So that's the pride of our extras coordinator in Calgary. And we pick the faces of people. I mean, everything is curated. They're chosen by, do they look like they live in whatever community we're trying to create? So yes, very carefully done. And we've reached out deeply into the community of Calgary and Alberta.
Yeah, I will say, I wasn't sure I was going to have a really big problem with Juno Temple, because she was Keely from Ted Lasso, and she had no other face. And I said, I don't know. And I went into it, and I believe that she's from the Midwest now. It took me a little bit to get through my brain.
Well, but
to accept that.
The accents are really important, right?
Sure.
The voice of that world. And we have Liz Himmelstein, who's the best of the best, as our dialect coach that begins all the actors on their journey. And then we have a local person who's with us as we shoot. And everybody goes through that. I think it's a wonderful way to begin, because you're immersing yourself while hearing those sounds. It's psychologically, you're changing your character and sort of the tone of your voice, and in a way, the way you use your physicality. It starts to spread, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I ever heard Juno when I was up there, the whole time I was there, ever heard her even off screen speak with her regular accent.
No, she stayed in it like Martin Freeman did.
The whole time. She did the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
time.
Martin did too.
Yeah, and even when the show ended, and when she spoke for the first time, I was like, I was disoriented by it, because
Yeah.
I'm so used to her playing this role now. I don't know her
Yeah.
any other
Right.
way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears for just a second, and I really want you both. I think both of you owe me an apology for The Handmaid's Tale and the nightmares I had on a pretty constant basis. How was creating a show so dark and so just thematically ugly, just really painful in some cases? What was that like as an experience?
Well, yes, we do apologize. No, but when we started developing this, I was not convinced we should initially, because of what you just said. But when we talked to Margaret, we talked to Bruce and the whole team, it was like, no, this show is, because the book ends in a very depressive way. It's a depressing sort of story. It's beginning, middle, and it's kind of over, and there's no resolve. So the idea was, no, there is a resolve. This is a revolution. This will be change. This will take over, and this woman will emerge from victory. She does it in the book. And so that's what the arc of the show is. But yeah, we go to places that are uncomfortable and unfortunately kind of prophetic, right, of what's happening.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point. With apologies, Chad, because I mean, I read this as a Canadian. I studied this book, and my daughter studied this book. Right, this is well known, but I have to say, Elizabeth Moss at the center of the story, not only on screen but off screen, maintains an incredible upbeat tone with the rest of the cast and crew. She is such an incredible leader of our crew, and she's, as you may be aware, she began directing in season 3, and is now one of our main director. And the thing about her character, Lizzie's, but also June's, is that there is hope at the center of it, that she doesn't give up. She's not defeated. There are times when you get pretty close, but there's hope and there's fight. And as Steve said, as we go into the last season, we're all of us as fans of the show, as viewers, looking for that fight. And knowing now, as we're preparing the last season, I think it's going to be a very, very strong ending to the show.
Yeah, I just remember for each season that came in, you know, when the new seasons was approaching, just like a month before, stealing myself and being like, okay, I'm a completionist, so I have to watch the rest of any season.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, another season, get myself
Well,
up to
here's
not
my
sleeping.
advice. Don't binge it, because you gotta take it in bites, and don't watch it right before bed. That
Yeah,
I give
that was
that
my
advice.
problem.
Because you got it. Well, but I think the best shows are the shows that live in your head after you finished watching them. You're thinking about them, right?
I agree. That was a lot to be thinking about at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I know. Yeah.
Steve, you mentioned something about that. You said it was kind of prophetic of, and I assume you're referring to the political climate of the time. In doing Handmaid's Tale or starting Handmaid's Tale, did we know that going into it? Was that, you know, was it approached from that perspective, or was it just a
No, not at all.
weird, unfortunate accident?
Not at all. No, it was a complete, and people think we were sort of, again, prophetic or brilliant of doing it. It was a complete accident. We started developing this in 2011. So it's and then we didn't do so it started then. So it was a long process of gestation before we got there. And then did we premiere Kim in 2006? I can't remember now. I think something like that. It took several years. It's funny, I've lost track of years now, but
Yeah.
it took several years to get there. And it was weird how, you know, Trump was elected. You know, he was there when the Think show was premiering. So it was all, it's just the incredible timing of it was amazing. So, but the responses, you probably know, Chad, around the world has been incredible. Like, it's amazing. The images we've seen from all over the world that have responded to this show is, you know, it's really rewarding for us, right?
But
So
I think we would all trade people thinking it was brilliant and prophetic to it not being so close to reality.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And as you probably know, I'm sure you've read, but everything in Margaret's book is something that has actually happened, right? That's what she writes, things that are based on truth. All of these things that you see on the show are things that actually have occurred in the world. And so
somewhere in the world, this has been done to these people for these reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned before about not binging. As executive producers, it's interesting because there are shows that are set up to stream as soon as they come out, 8 episodes, that kind of thing. And for a show like Fargo, I'm waiting till tomorrow to see what happens. And so I'll be waiting till, you know, each episode. How do you think because of the cultural evolution, I guess maybe because of the internet, of streaming has affected the work you do or how you like to approach it? How has streaming benefited or made it more challenging?
I just was with someone this weekend who said she's waiting to watch all of Fargo until January. So she wants to watch it all. So there are people who have definitely you know, adapted to this, and they get frustrated by it. I still like, honestly, the weekly thing. I think that's nice to look forward to it and people can watch it together. I still like that. But my show Wednesday, that benefited from streaming all on Thanksgiving weekend. Everyone watched it right in a row, and it was actually benefited the show. So I think it's a double-edged sword, honestly. Kim, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think the revolution that I love is that I get to work on shows that are essentially 10-hour movies. However people choose to watch them, they're written as a 10-hour story, The Handmaid's Tale and Fargo. And so the richness of character and what you can do in that time. And I think the Coen Brothers said this to Noah, too, Steve, at one point. It's amazing how you can, like, you've got 10 hours and we had 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 max. That's a gift. And I think it's a gift for all of us as storytellers. So whether people choose to watch it one way or the other, that's a personal choice. I'm happy that they have. For me, my personal viewing is that I have some series that are coming out weekly, and then I have at least one that's already all there so that I can fill in if I want. So I've got 3 things going, right?
Yes. Lastly, I'm going to ask you guys, do you have a guilty pleasure that is something, TV or movie, that you watch just to cleared the brain, or after a series of watching The Handmaid's Tale that have overwhelmed you and you just need something to deprogram? Steve?
Generally, because we're so immersed in the scripted world, I tend to watch a lot of reality shows. I do, I have to admit. I love The Wall, at this game show. I just love it. It's very uplifting and fun. I even watch Housewives or two. That's my embarrassing one.
Wow. I new thing about you, Steve.
I'm being honest. I'm being honest.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't watch reality. So I would say for me, animation, Pixar,
really?
things like that. Like I remember my dad using me as the excuse to go to Disney movies at the theater, right? Because as long as he had me beside him, it was justified. But we both loved that escapist world, that wonderful fantasy. So yeah, and I took my daughter.
Fantastic.
And documentaries too. I love documentaries. That's not a guilty pleasure though.
No,
Nah.
I thought about that, but that's actually a
I love documentaries.
high-minded pleasure.
Yeah, that's high-minded. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Steve and Kim. I appreciate everything and taking the time to be here for us. That's going to be it for us for this week. You can check us out on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_.u. I am Chad Anderson. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Steve and Kim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.